had Bill and Maya here for like a second or two.
Pre-show. We had them for pre-show.
We were talking about kids stuff. It was awesome.
Uh,
All right, now we're back to normal. We got Max is now sitting over here in a position of honor, and he has a belt and a scarf. I'll show you. It's very funny. So here's Max, right? But now he keep the two halves of the shell here come apart. And so, and of course, you don't want to glue them together because then everything's permanently stuck in there.
Yeah.
So you just leave it that way. Well, if you put him up on a stand, then the front part just falls off and all of his insides fall out. And so we've been trying to figure out. So he's got a nice little belt now. It's a Velcro belt, and I put a little scarf on him. It's a Velcro scarf, so that now he'll stay together.
So how do you know? How do you know if that statue is a Max and not a Maxine?
Well, it's definitely because they're actually. Dad got my sister the Visible Woman, and she was definitely female. This guy's definitely male, although the it's sort of the infamous just a bump there, to indicate that maybe that's possibly what's there.
But he doesn't have a uterus.
Yeah, well, that's true. The Visible Woman had a uterus and had all of that stuff in her too. So,
but they didn't put the male part.
No, they didn't put testicles or anything in there. And I'm like, well, that's interesting.
That's weird.
Yeah, actually, me now, I'm like, I would have liked to have had that in there since there's a uterus in the Visible Woman.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have the reproductive organs for the Visible Man too. I mean, if you're going to put them in the Visible Woman.
Yeah, and that leads into the
question.
question.
But the Visible Woman also has no breasts. Like there's no tissue.
Okay.
It has the shell. The shell is there.
But it doesn't have
nothing underneath it.
Things. Like okay.
Yeah.
Hey Brent.
Hey Brent. So I mean it's kind of like I do kind of feel like they're missing something,
Yeah. I just want to point out this morning, Brent,
that you're missing a beard.
Yes, I'm missing a beard. Yes, I'm missing a beard. I decided to shave it today.
I guess.
I saw Meatloaf had.
Yeah, we were seeing that your post on that.
And I saw your post on Louis Anderson, and I basically was like, my childhood has been pretty much shot today because Meatloaf was probably was played nonstop in my house by my older sister. I Will Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That.
But it won't do that.
Was kind of an anthem for her for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Anderson, I absolutely adored as a kid with his cartoon show, and I watched it religiously. I would get upset if I missed it. So I'm kind of I'm kind of numb right now.
Yeah.
To it. It's kind of weird. Waking up to that news is always weird.
Mm-hmm.
Meatloaf, the one thing I would say about Meatloaf, the one thing I do like about him was the odd acting jobs that he always did.
Well, as someone who actually did do Rocky Horror, that's sort of a thing. Like a lot of Meatloaf weirdness was in Rocky Horror.
No, he actually played a couple of weird acting gigs.
And, yeah.
And he was also in Psych, the TV show too, which Bill is in the middle of rewatching right now because we love Psych, and Psych is filled with a bunch of 80s and late 70s, early 80s references. And even the movies are the mid to early 90s, late 80s references. The references just continue to go down that path, right. And it's just Yeah, his guest house on Spot was his guest spot on House was was hilarious for me to watch because it was like that was not the role I was expecting Meatloaf to play. But also at the same time, I have to remember that Meatloaf's daughter is also an actor, and I don't think I ever saw the chance of those two acting together on screen, either on TV
Right.
or. And if anyone doesn't believe me that his daughter's not an actress, watch Superbad or watch what's that HBO show about a traveling Carnival. She's in that one too. But I can't remember what she's been in recently. In Superbad, she plays the girlfriend that makes a mark on someone's pants, I think. Superbad is a really weird movie,
I
okay?
guess.
You have to be high to watch it.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking you have to just be on drugs.
So anyway, my medication hit me hard yesterday, so I'm just gonna say that I had a bow out yesterday. Like of life.
Were you on the show yesterday?
No, that's why I wasn't.
Like every day is like I'm having a problem because every day is starting to blur together now. So I'm like, were you with me yesterday? Or
No,
were
I was with you on Wednesday.
Okay.
You offered for me to go yesterday, and today's Friday. And how I know it's Friday is I just called before the show. I called my nephew to say happy birthday. He turned
Gotcha.
16 today,
and you shaved your beard, and that's how we know it's Friday.
Yeah, I shaved my beard.
By next Thursday, it'll be full growth, and then you'll shave it again because it'll be Friday.
It probably won't be full growth. It will probably be like half.
I'm messing with you now.
Yeah.
Of course, your beard does not grow in 1 week.
It's not fully gone. Like there's still like I did it low enough so that there's still stubble. So like eventually color will come back, and especially the white color. The problem is when I do it, every single time I shave my face, I don't feel normal. I feel like I'm a teenager again.
Mm-hmm. That's why I have to keep this. I look like a teenager with gray hair.
But it was just
very weird.
The longer hairs kept sticking to my nose, right underneath, like where the mustache area is, and then I just got sick of it. And Bill was saying that I wasn't allowed to shave my head completely, so I had to shave something.
You had to shave something.
Yeah,
something had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you guys can actually see that I'm secretly a Muppet.
You are a Muppet. I've known that. It's not a secret, dude.
Me.
Beaker is one of my favorite characters ever. Oh my god.
For the Halloween show coming up this year, I think we should plan out like me be Beaker and you be Professor Honeydew.
Right? God, Beaker is so funny.
I think Beaker Beaker is not my favorite. My favorite is always going to be Animal.
Animal. Have you seen Bohemian Rhapsody?
Have you seen the commercial? Have you seen the commercial where there's like a couple that like?
And Pepper's looking fresh today. Fresh pepper. We have fresh pepper on our show today.
Have you seen the commercial for like Geico? It's like a home insurance commercial or something like that. And
no.
People are like, we have a problem. We have an animal in our attic, and it's literally Animal from the Muppets,
right,
drumming away in their attic. And then he like launches himself down the stairs, and it's hysterical.
That's one of my favorite things. So like if you go Google at YouTube Bohemian Rhapsody Muppets, it is not right. The entire thing is beautiful and it's in a Muppets way. But I mean, you can't sing some of those lyrics and be kid friendly. So
No.
the whole part that's "Mama, I just killed a man," they gave to Animal. So he
Yeah.
goes, "Mama, mama, 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 mama," through the entire part. That's all he's doing. And then like because that whole
Well,
section you can't say, right? You can't sing
well,
it for
like
kids. So
the Electric Zydeco band is basically the band that Animal's a part of.
yeah,
So like
with
everyone,
Smiley or Dr. Teeth
Dr. Teeth,
and
uh,
what's her name?
yeah. Well, there's 4 band members.
Yeah.
Um, and I like on how they've always done that, but the earwig song from the Muppets will always be dun, 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 phenomena.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and all I have to say is that, and if you know the song, it will get stuck in your head because it's now stuck in mine, and I hope
Yep.
it's.
And you just did that to everybody here.
No, you can hate me all you want.
We do.
Phenomena.
Phenomena. Beep beep beep. Phenomena.
Uh,
Oh man, that's so funny.
so
Oh well. Anyway, so it really is. It's like a totally unappreciated art form. So it's like stop motion animation, right? There's something elegantly beautiful about the amount of work that you have to put into puppeteering and stop motion animation. They're classic art forms that I feel like, modern day, everybody just kind of replaces it with CG. And then you're like, well, okay, but I mean, and it looks great, but I feel like, there's something, it takes a human factor out.
well, I look at it this way. Um, Puppeteering, like I've actually made my own puppet using my old Cabbage Patch doll when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I lost that puppet because some kid basically intertwined all the things and made the puppet basically not workable. And
Yeah.
I was really pissed off because I did a lot of time and effort to make sure that I could work it as a puppet. Um, this came from like one of my aunt that married into the family. Her family did puppet shows, so shadow puppets and other types of puppets. So I actually got to see like different styles of puppetry as a
Mm-hmm,
kid,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know, like when I was a kid, if I didn't get the chance to see that, I think my childhood would have sucked. I don't know about you,
Right.
but mine would have.
Let's see if that isn't. No, it's not. In theory, tonight or today, I have to do a photography shoot. In theory, of very
Nice.
small things. Yeah, that's what it's hard to see, but there's this rig right here. That's what it's for. There are 2 lights on either side of a white box. And the white box is one of those expandable white boxes. And what you do is there's a small stage in there, and you put the item on the small stage inside there, turn the lights
Oh,
on, and it lights either side.
yeah, I have one of those.
Mm-hmm. I have the really big bright lights turned onto it, so it's extremely easy to do.
I
Requires very
I
little shutter adjustment.
I actually have one that has different backdrops. So like, and it's LED lighting, so it's not like it's built into it. So like
Right.
it folds up, and then you fold it out, you plug it in, and essentially, like mine is like one of those cheapo ones. It's like ones that you only do like when you really have like a pinch and you don't want to actually do the professional grade.
Right.
Um, but I like doing that. I've done that for companies before, and it's always fun. Um, the only downside is when those companies don't want to spring for the actual cameras and everything, and you have to do everything. I literally had to do it all on my phone at one point,
Right.
and that was weird.
Let me outline the selection.
Ghost Hand, I
still
have
think
like a
that
very strong opinion about the Dark Crystal thing that came back because we already know the outcome of the series. They did a movie. They all died except for 2 of them.
Well, yeah, but why?
I don't know. It was still a good series. I'm not saying it's
Well,
crap.
that's what I mean. I'm just
not
saying,
trying to
why
crap
did
on
they?
it, but
Why were we there? That I think that's part of it.
yeah.
Drop
But
off.
Vordot NGO is back
Yep.
on YouTube.
We get all kinds of cool stuff now.
Yeah.
Clearly, that is an important thing. So, just entertained. That's all.
Be gone,
Spot. Be gone, Spot. Oh man.
No, I literally this morning, like I said earlier, my nephew turned 16, and
Merry
so
birthday, nephew.
yeah. So when he answered the phone, I was like, "Happy birthday! Thank you for being born today. You made me an uncle." And it just basically he just
Thank
basically
you, Brent.
started laughing. So
all we're getting out there from YouTube is the bot. We get Hal from time to time, which is cool, but that bot is starting to drive me crazy.
So every single time you say Hal, I think of Howl from Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think you're saying Hal now, because after seeing him pop up talking, that's nice. And I do like the fact that we get to see everyone on this platform in one area instead of having to respawn in every single little individual area.
Yes, that is one of the big pluses to Restream, is the ability to talk to Ghost Hand and Hal and Brent all at the same time.
Yes.
So, which is definitely a plus.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. I am working on. Where's my okay for this? I don't get you okay with this. So there. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's the way you're going to be. I'm working on my Jeppesen maps. So we were talking about, and I'll show you what's going on my screen over here. This is a pilot map for flying into Zurich.
Cool.
And it's how what a pilot looks at to go, oh, okay, this is the stuff at the airport, right? And so the idea for tabling, that we're gonna so what we talked about yesterday, all of us, was the concept that I'm going to do for the table is I'm going to do a 6-page short comic, and then I'm going to do a tech manual which has a whole bunch of cool stuff in it, like maps and things like that, because the maps are already done, and uniforms and things like that. And Brent is suggesting that I do a tech manual and a map book, which is 2 different things. But I'm not sure we have enough material to do a tech manual and a map book. So we'd have to finish a couple of other things that need a couple of
What kind of tech manual for your ship?
For everything. So this was started with this book right here. This is the 1975 Franz Joseph Tech Manual, right? This one right here.
Okay. Now I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about.
Yep. And it has flags and it has.
I think Brent has a better idea. A travel brochure.
Right. So Brent thinks a travel brochure.
Yeah, done in like a cheesy 1950s futuristic retrospective style, I think. Break out the pastels
Right.
in the gouache in
And
the
the
airbrush.
gouache. Um,
You all think
so,
I'm joking, but that's literally on how they did a lot of art back then.
no, I'm with you. I know I had to do some of that for a game once. They wanted me to do maps in the style of the old, like, Texaco travel maps,
Oh yeah, dude, I love that art.
super sharp angles. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Guy, when you
Yes.
come up here next time, like next February, like the first weekend of next February,
Uh-huh.
I need to take you by this house. It
Ugh.
literally is like a step, like a blast from the past. It has
Nice.
features on it that literally have like the futuristic styles of like a different time era. So they have like this bar that goes across like instead of a gate, and it has triangles pointing up towards the street. And then
Nice.
on the house, it has like the retro like 1950s, early 60s like star pattern on the house specifically.
I love those. There
Yeah,
is something just pleasantly wonderful about 1960s Atom Punk style. I
yeah,
love that stuff.
yeah.
That's the best.
So I told Bill like I would want to buy the house just for the exterior. like, uh,
It probably still has the same people living there from the 60s, and they were 20 in the 60s, and they were like, "Ooh, we're gonna do it all nice." And now they're like in their 80s now, but they've lived there for 60 years, so
I don't know. I've never seen the owners. I've never seen the owners at
yeah.
all. Like I don't like. I know people go up to like other people's homes that they admire and like just go like, if you ever are interested in like selling the house, here you go. Here's my information, and I want to buy it.
Right.
Type deal. Um, I would be very wary about doing that because if they are older and they are looking to sell, and I don't have the money to put a down payment on it, then I'm screwed. And then after that, like then it would be like, why did I do this to myself? I have two
Right.
houses
Now
now.
I have an extra house.
I have to rent one out. Which one do I rent out?
Right. So
But no, like the exterior. Well, it's just the exterior. Now, if I went up to the house and like I just asked for a tour inside, and like the entire inside of the house is kind of like that Atom Punk thing, I think I would basically be like, okay, we're moving. Especially if they have the avocado green fridge or the turquoise blues fridge, I'd be done for it. Like I'd basically be like, all right, we're moving. We
that
have
was
to.
totally my grandparents' kitchen. The avocado green fridge. I remember that avocado green fridge.
So,
But
um,
my mom's parents were socialites. So
mm,
that's exactly what happened. Their house was immaculate and straight out of 1963.
mm,
Like the TV was the super awesome in a wooden cabinet, but it had the little, you turned it on and it went boop every time, and it's like ancient, and you had to pull the little knob to turn it on, boom,
boop.
and it made that noise, that boom, as the flyback transformer comes online. I keep telling people I could hear when I was a kid. I had a tube in this ear,
Mm-hmm.
and when it came out, I think the eardrum healed back really thin because, man, if somebody cracked a flyback transformer, I'd have headaches for days. The
Well,
and I could hear it. I could really hear it. I was like, oh,
I mean, it happens occasionally to me now, even as an adult. But I had ear problems too as kids.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened with the tube was like it weakened both of my eardrums. And then I also had a wax drum blow. So like I had like one of those things happen. Um, and ever since then, like for some weird unknown reason, if there's a power outage, I don't hear a single thing. But the moment that the power comes back on,
You
I
can hear
know
it.
the power is on because I can hear it.
Right.
And it's a super weird sound. It's like, and it's not even a feeling. It's just like something's on.
Right.
You know, like it's not going away. It's like the refrigerator is now back on. No, it's not just the refrigerator. What else is on? You know, like
Right. You can kind
but
of hear the feel of it.
yeah. And I was talking with someone and I basically was like, yeah, but once I exit my house and the power, like say the power went off for the entire neighborhood, once you exit your house, you don't even hear, like I have like this really weird, like I can't hear anything even outside moment. And in Florida, all the power lines are above ground. So clearly there's that. And then, but when power starts being restored, there's like a whistling in the air that I can hear. And that hurts my ears.
Yep.
Because when it starts returning, like it's like super, like I just know it's coming back and it hurts.
You're like, I know it'll be here.
Yeah.
I know.
The fun is gone because all the power's back on.
I can feel my bones.
Wow.
Wow.
So do you think you have like do you think you have enough for what you would call the starter manual?
That's what I was thinking. I when we were talking about the travel brochure and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, I thought about it and I thought that might be kind of clever, but you couldn't really, welcome to, the unity. Here's the uniform you're wearing. Well, that's not true because I'd be like, welcome to the United States. Here's the uniform you're wearing. So that won't work. So it would have to be a military manual of some sort, like, because I think it's a great idea. But you could do like a manual which has like a page or two on gravimetrics and
What if you did it in a way of it's like a recruiting
yeah.
manual, like a recruiting brochure, but they're talking about the style of ship the Kittiwake is, and then basically like the brochure is like it's kind of like a mini booklet,
Right.
type deal. You don't have it like you can make it 5.5 by 8.5 finished size. You sit there and you basically have the plans and everything, and you can talk about like depending on your department, here's what the uniforms that you have to choose from are, and like you go
Right.
through which department does what part of the ship that you'd be working on, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that was my thought, was something, something like that, like you could do, because there's a lot of maps and stuff like that that I've done, as Brent is so fond of making a commentary about, because he's not wrong. There's a lot of maps that I've got, which would be cool to see. Like I've worked really hard to place this in the correct spot with all the stars around it, and that'd be kind of cool to show. Um, but then it's kind of like, if you do a brochure, then it'd be like, well, you already know where all of this is. Right? I mean, it's kind of like saying, "Here's your house."
Okay, I think Brent has something even better than what we're talking about. Basically, just read the comment.
Well, yeah. I know what he's saying, but this implies that you are like, I don't know. I feel kind of like
Honestly, I do think he has like a point, because if you have space travel for army, you're gonna have space travel for leisure.
sure, but then you wouldn't. There's no reason if I were to say, welcome to the Grand Canyon, there wouldn't be a section in there on U.S. Navy military uniforms.
No, but you could actually spoof the Grand Canyon type one, where it's like,
That's what I'm saying is like I get I mean I'd have to I don't
and
know.
basically display one of your maps. Yeah,
Due to the ongoing incident. Yeah, I don't know. I mean I like the idea. I just have to make it I have to come up with the conceit for it. Right. Well, and that's what I was thinking was that would be sort of a welcome to boot camp. Here's your boot camp manual. Might not be a bad idea.
yeah.
In that instance, because I think Ghost Hand's right. There's no, I mean, I guess there would be recruitment like in the world that we're sort of setting up. There would be people who are like, hey, join my company or whatever. But
Well, I also wonder. I don't know if you can do this or not. I don't know if you're able to do it. What if you made actual pattern patterns for
mhm,
cosplaying? Like actually made the pattern for the uniform for cosplayers.
right. Because that actually is one of the things that we see in the well, that would take a long time. I feel like that would take a lot of effort, and it'd be coordination between me and my wife because
Mm,
she actually does cosplay. So that actually is a thing she would do, and she sews. And
yeah.
I mean, I haven't drawn out a pattern since I was 16 or 17. So, right. So, I mean,
Okay.
like, so Brent, the point of this was to use resources that are already here.
Yeah.
If we talk about like, for example, if we discuss uh, starships of the Commonwealth, they aren't built yet. So we're gonna have to build all those models. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I don't want to do that because that's going to take us months of, well, we've got to build more
What
models
if
so
you
we can get
just?
the
What
Commonwealth.
if instead of doing anything complicated, just do something straightforward and actually just do the blueprints of your ship that you have finished?
Yeah, well, that's what the point is. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the
You don't
idea
have to.
here is
I mean,
to,
you can do the pamphlets if you can get them done. If you get them done, that's great. But if you don't get the pamphlets done, the backup plan would be printing out the blueprints for your ships.
yeah, hmm
And then basically, if anyone asks, to go, this is the blueprints from the ships. Here's a
right
six
here.
page mini comic about what I'm working on right
Yeah,
now.
I, so I guess my thought is, I like the conceit that Brent and Ghost Hand are coming up with, that it's some kind of manual of some sort. I just don't think we could do a cute, Grand Canyon esque, welcome to the system of moment, you know, which is the first system we run into, because we actually, like I was saying before, we've got the this is the layout of that system. So this would be cool to have, but it also is very much a pilot's view of the system. It's not going to be just a normal person's view of the system. So my thought is if
Honestly, I could see you putting like a red dot saying you are right here.
right. Um
You know what? I don't agree with what you're saying, because I have seen maps which to cartographers make complete sense. To me, they look like gobbledygook.
yeah.
Like, so I can completely see you putting a red dot saying that you are right here
Mhm.
in that system, and people will basically be like, "Oh wow, that's a really cool map of that system."
Right.
Like, I don't think people would I think people would know that it's a novelty, not necessarily reality.
Yes. Yeah, but Brent's saying new ship or base like a handout. That's what I was thinking was maybe that's where we're headed is the welcome aboard the Kittiwake as a gravimetric scientist. This is your
Yeah.
gravimetric scientist manual. Welcome aboard the Kittiwake. Let me show you how to quickly read the charts that you're going to see in the gravimetrics room. And, here are some of the star maps and stellar cartography for navigation. As a gravimetric officer, your job is going to be to, you know what I mean? Like that would be a good conceit. Because then it would be like the gravimetrics manual, and it's really not a tech manual per se. But then, you could do then all the uniforms. Remember that when aboard the Kittiwake, you have to follow the uniform code, and you must keep your uniform clean and neat, and use the recycler, and because that would be kind of cool. Because that would make sense if we did it sort of like that. Then it'd be like a little pamphlet that sort of gives a conceit to the story, like "Welcome aboard the USS Kittiwake," or the UMC Kittiwake. The UMC Kittiwake. Your captain says hi.
Yeah.
And have a picture of Chang. Message from the captain could be a like the first page. Yeah.
Captain Bill.
Mm-hmm. Messages from Captain Bill. So.
Hey, I can't really say much. I'm literally still trying to figure out on how to kill off a murderous butterfly man. So
I hate it when that happens. I saw that race though. I understand. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be working on today is this because it's pretty cool and I like it and it looks neat and stuff. So let's see here. And these are all the frequencies to call them. Oh, yeah. That's another thing we should do is ceilings. Like an approach ceiling. So, okay, what are you working on today?
Well, I'm starting out my days usually and typically right now writing for a few hours. And then I go into just like doodling and concept art, and then I go into drawing comics. That's the plan.
Sounds good to me.
But honestly, I kind of want to start drawing these characters that I have writing to kind of get me unblocked from a certain area. So I think I'm going to go get that supplies.
That's worked for me. So, UHF, the movie
I've
UHF.
heard the initials.
Huh?
I've heard the initials.
I mean, as in the movie UHF with Weird Al.
Yes, I watched it for some. Okay, so this may sound really bad, but it was someone I know's bachelor and bachelorette party, and of course, it was during the pandemic. So they literally had everyone watch it together for their bachelor and bachelorette Jack and Jill online party.
So one of the things is they have this guy who's in the movie who's Japanese, and he keeps hiding in the supply closet. And you open the supply closet, and he goes supplies. And so every time anybody says supplies, I say supplies, and I suddenly had this realization that not only is that like really, really, really not good for like racially, it's just not cool. But it's against like my second home's the people of my second home, right? Like, not only is it sort of insensitive in and of itself, which was fine in 1983 or whenever this movie came out, but it's insensitive towards people that I actually hang out with. Like, so I'm like, so now I'm having to like censor that because I got to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been struggling with it to stop that because I don't want to do that anymore. There are a lot of jokes. We were talking about this one on Geek Tank. There are a lot of jokes we can say that don't have to involve making, jokes or whatever, and that are at the expense of people.
Well, I mean, also at the same time, like everyone sits there and is like, "Oh, well, that's this or that's this," and it's like the family I grew up in. There are people in my family who are highly intelligent, but the moment that people found out when I was a kid that I was Polish, I
Oh
always
yeah,
heard the dumb Polish jokes.
yeah.
And what irritated me the most about it was I had to laugh at some of them because some of them were outright true. And then some of them were completely like false. Like
Right.
that would never happen in my family, so I don't think that that's plausible. Um
That's not anatomically plausible.
yeah, like I mean
You can't even do that.
the problem was like when someone made told me this joke and it ended with like basically the Polak just walked into the door, and I was just like I laughed at it and they were like, oh well that's funny, here's another one, and then that next one was highly racist and I did not find that funny.
Right.
And I'm not repeating it,
That's fine.
but the reason why I laughed at the previous one is I've literally watched family members walk into glass doors after
Right.
cleaning them.
Right.
So, it's kind of like one of those things of sometimes racial profiling can be actually true, but
Well,
I
except
think
that
what it
I
is
don't know.
is
I think a lot of people walk into glass doors, so I don't know.
yeah, and I think that's basically what it is. Is like I don't think that's a racially thing, but like putting a racial connotation by it was what was wrong with that at the time. Now, mind you, I heard this joke when I was it was 1987 when I first heard that joke. So there's I was still fairly young as a kid. I was not even aware that it was wrong to laugh at the racial aspect of it.
Right.
I thought it was funny because I witnessed like my one of my sisters running into a door right after cleaning it. Like that's why I thought it was funny because like I had a family member that just did it. Um, but I do know that a lot of Eastern cultures, like not just Japanese, but Chinese, Korean, um, Philippine, like they all have this problem where people think that they don't speak with L's,
Right.
and and I'm thinking like I'm sure you probably are aware of this too, but like there was a YouTuber that actually went over to Japan and to China and had people say English words in those countries, and like in Japan, the 20 something year olds that they were coming up to and asking what the English word milk was, they kept saying milku,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and and
Neat.
someone's like, but don't you guys not have L's? And finally one of the people basically responded, no, we do speak with L's, and like went on to this whole tirade on how Westerners don't think that they do that because they can't hear them say an L properly in English terms.
So that's kind of complicated, but yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, um, in general, the the Japanese L is sort of mixed with their R. And it
Right.
depends on where you are in in the country as
Mhm.
to, because what we were discovering was the further out into the boonies, the more it sounded like an R, and the closer to Tokyo, the more it sounded like an L. But
Yeah, and
it's a
that's what
weird sound.
the girl in the video basically was saying, because she was originally from she's originally from Hokkaido, but she was living in Tokyo where they were doing the filming of the video.
Mhm.
And she basically, that's what she was saying. Like, they pronounce the word differently here, but in this area, this is on how they pronounce it. So she went into all of that too. Um, she was the last person in the video that they filmed. So
Yeah, it's it's one of those things, and it is very different. Every language is different. I mean, like, obviously, but for example, Mandarin and Cantonese are tonal.
yeah,
So the rise and the fall of your word changes the meaning. You can say ma, and that means something completely different than ma,
yeah.
right? The rise means one thing and the drop means another. Um, and so because of that, Chinese sounds sing-songy, and that makes people who mock Chinese, they sit there, "Wee, wee, 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 wee," they're like making that mocking. They're mocking the sing-songy because it goes up and down depending on what your word you're
Yeah.
saying.
No, people
Um,
people do that to French as well. They also do
mhm,
it to Spanish as well as
they do.
into
Uh,
because you can have a full on full on sentence in French, which it's ver 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 ver
yeah, yeah, exactly.
like and it's basically involves something with green. I forget what it is, but um yeah. So,
Right?
yeah, no, it is true. It's just like, um, yeah,
And I
it's
feel that way too, being an American. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, okay, so we've got different dialects between, say, Mississippi and here, but the distance between Mississippi and here is like three Japans.
yeah,
It's like, not really, but you're absolutely right. There's like a completely different dialect in Osaka than there is in Tokyo.
yeah,
And Tokyo, and in fact, I was in Ibaragi, and that's only 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers from Tokyo. So not even really that far. And it had a completely different dialect. One that, if I'm not careful, I mimic when I speak Japanese, because of course that's where I was. But
yeah.
it sounds like Mississippi Southern slang to everybody. So everybody thinks that I'm not intelligent. I give the farmer feeling, Farmer Joe is sort of the impression I give when I speak
Well,
like that. And it's like,
it's
okay.
kind of like one of the people that I knew that went over to Japan as a teenager, as a student. Um, she went to Osaka,
Mm-hmm.
and when she was
She picked up
there,
Osaka Ben.
yeah, so
Yep.
she basically learned formal Japanese prior to going to Japan. That was part of the agreement of her going to study abroad. And so when she got there and she picked up the Osaka dialect and they went to like Kyoto for a school
Mm-hmm.
trip, um, people found it funny that an American was using an Osaka dialect.
Right. Well, that's what they do to me all the time. They're always like,
Yeah,
you sound like a hick. I'm like, what?
yeah,
I'm
but
like, what do you
like,
mean I sound like a hick?
and then she like realized like something about code switching. So basically, when from that point on, she spoke formally.
Yep.
And so her while she was in Kyoto, and what was interesting was she said that basically, like, it is definitely code switching
Mm-hmm.
because it's when she was with her friends that she was in school with, they all spoke in the dialect of Osaka, and then the moment that she went to a cash register, she was super formal.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's in like it was weird because all the other kids didn't have to do that. She had to.
I made my kids do that though. They didn't want to,
Yeah.
but I mean, because that was a different thing. I think what happens is kids do what kids do, right?
Yeah.
Like kids are the same no matter where you are,
Yeah.
right? Kids here will come up to a cash register. Hey, can I have that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like I'll get on my kid here and say, no, come on,
Yeah.
be nice. Go up there and say, may I have that, please? You know, so we have a code switch too in English.
Yeah.
You could say, can I have that? And or you can say, may I have that, please? And there's like two different codes there. It's the same thing.
Right. Yeah. No. What I'm talking about
I mean,
as
if I were to walk
basically,
up to right, but I mean, I
basically though, like everyone. So when she was out and about, what I'm talking about is when she was out and about, the people that lived in Kyoto realized that the whole group that she was in was from Osaka. The only person that was ever told something negative was her.
right. It's because they'll get on the foreigner for it.
Yeah.
Sense. No, I mean, like I could go up to um I could go up to the counter in Japan and go, biru chodai,
Mhm.
and you give me a beer, But that's super, super rude, and it's really, really slangy,
Mhm.
and nobody would do that,
Mhm.
Ippon biru kudasai. It's a much more polite way to do it, prim and proper Japanese, you know.
Yeah.
It's but I could say biru chodai, and it's like super rude.
Yeah, because she had actually made a speech in front of her entire school.
I said my farewell speech in front of my school in Japanese.
No, she had to say a welcoming speech,
Mhm.
like a
My welcoming speech could be in English because I had only been there for like 3 days, and so they didn't expect me to speak English or speak
oh no,
Japanese.
she had to say hers in Japanese.
Yep, I
Yeah,
know. I'm just
'cause-
saying it depends on what the expectation is.
yeah,
For a teacher, they didn't expect you to speak Japanese, but after 3 years, I was like, I did my final speech in Japanese and said goodbye to my school in Japanese, to all my students, and I apparently said a couple of things really funny or something because later my students were coming up and going, I'm confused, Guy Sensei. And I'm like, what are you confused about? And they're like, I thought you were American. I'm like, uh-oh, what did I say? And of course, some of it was, you said you were from Colorado. I thought you were from America. And I'm like, did you not pay attention? Did you not? Were you not there? Where were you in class when we
well,
talked about Colorado being a state of?
yeah. It well, the thing is someone was a one person I met that was from Japan. They had a hard time understanding our state system,
Oh
and
yeah,
another Japanese friend at the school basically looked at him and said, "Okay, you know how we have prefectures? That's on how their states work."
yeah. A lot of differences, though. The reason why people get confused
Mhm.
is because Americans will talk about the state system being different than prefecture systems, and it is, but the distinction is minimal.
Yeah.
Like it's a legal distinction. It's not a real distinction. But Americans will be like, no, no, our states are different than prefectures. Well, technically, it's true because our states can technically override all but the top federal laws.
Right.
So that's a very different thing than, say, Japan, where, Ibaraki can't make a law that says that you can smoke marijuana, let's say.
Right.
As a great example of that, Colorado passed a law that said you can now have marijuana here in Colorado, but you can't in Kansas, and you can't in, you know what I mean? Like, all the states around it didn't pass that, or they're working on passing that law. But so are you saying that Brazil's too big? Because Brazil is pretty big, but you guys all are still under the prefecture sort of design as well. The reason we call them states is because state is technically another term for government. And that's so the idea is the United States is the united coalition of a whole bunch of little governments.
Yeah.
That's the whole design structure of us. The problem is, and this was a fight for our founding fathers, and it's still a fight today, how much do you say the US needs to override state law? And that's what we have an issue with all the stinking time.
Well, I mean, we have laws that get in effect in essentially they get threatened every single time because one state has a stronger opinion about not having that as a federal law,
Right.
more of a state law. And unfortunately, we do have some stuff coming up that will affect freedom of choice in medicine and a bunch of other stuff. So,
If you're talking about vaccines, that's already
nope,
been,
not talking about vaccines.
yeah,
Someone is trying to put Roe versus Wade back onto the table of being taken out
doing it.
as a
Yep.
federal thing.
Yep.
And what a lot of people don't realize is Roe versus Wade actually has a lot of hidden things in it, such as, like, say you want to do an elective surgery that will help you in the long run, but your doctor thinks that shouldn't be done. Your doctor now makes that decision for you. You can't. Part
Yes
of
and
Roe
no.
versus Wade is that type of scenario.
Well, okay, so Roe v. Wade is a very complicated law. The thing is, Roe v. Wade. So Roe v. Wade sits on. You're just working on paying the rent. That's fair.
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade sits on the back of Massachusetts v. Johansen,
Yep.
which is a law that we passed that said that you don't have a right to your body when when it's a threat to society.
Right.
Because Johansen went to the Supreme Court to say that he should be allowed to decline the smallpox vaccine,
Right.
and the Supreme Court turned him down. Recently, though, and Roe v. Wade is based off of it's actually in conflict with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conservatives in our country have used Johansen versus Massachusetts to justify abortion law, or
Right.
anti-abortion law, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this is one of those things that I thought was fascinating, someone took a Biden requirement to have a COVID vaccine to the Supreme Court, and our conservative Supreme Court turned it down, which overturns Johansen versus Massachusetts and undoes all anti-abortion laws,
Right.
including the ones that are underpinning that caused problems with Roe v. Wade. So that was a choice that I thought was interesting. It was a choice that the Supreme Court decided, which was saying that the government does not, in fact, have a right to force you to take a vaccine. In that stance, that means the government also does not have a right to force you to not have an abortion.
Well, what I
So
find
that
ironic
became
and funny
one
about
of those
all of this,
twists that you're like, well, I didn't see that coming.
yeah, so what I find ironic and funny about all of it is the same people who are trying to get Roe versus Wade overturned are the same people who don't realize what you're talking about will happen. And then these are the same people who basically say, my choice, my body, when it comes to vaccinations.
Right.
A lot of these people are. And so essentially, when they overturn Roe versus Wade, they now open the door for them being forced vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
maybe what the Supreme Court is trying to decide.
Yeah.
What side of this do they sit on?
Yeah. And that's like, it's one of those things of, I don't think anyone, the moment that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, this has been the moment that everyone's been waiting for the pro-life movement in America. So
People having no idea what they're talking about. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the problem. They have no idea they have no idea what they're getting into. These arguments are weird.
Yeah, and
the whole vaccine thing is so weird. It's like it doesn't even make logical sense. But I'm having a whole bunch of problems like that.
Yeah.
Like I had a discussion with a buddy yesterday about environmental things because he was like, the Biden administration is destroying our what was it? He said the Trump administration finally made us energy independent by bringing our oil reserves back online.
Yeah.
And I said, huh? And I went and looked, and the production of our oil fields, something happened during the Reagan administration back in 1985. And the production of the oil fields went thump and fell through the ground. So it was Reagan and Bush that actually damaged all of our oil dependency or made us oil dependent because it was them. And then Obama, his administration brought it back up. And since then, it has just been steadily climbing.
Right.
But it's interesting how talking to him, he just really didn't want to go with that. He didn't want to go with that. And
well, it's kind of like when people sit there and like they'll do, it's like someone like when Clinton was in office.
Right.
When Clinton was in office, I heard a whole bunch of horrible things about Bill Clinton.
Sure.
Some of it was possibly true. I don't know.
Who knows?
I didn't vote for the person. So,
right.
I wasn't able to vote when he was elected into office. I wasn't able to vote until Mitt Romney was like, no, Al Gore.
Al Gore.
Yeah. Like, anyway, I
actually was in the vote for Bill Clinton.
Yeah. Here's the deal. With Bill Clinton, there was a lot of things that were done during his administration for freedom of religion that a lot of people don't realize he did. Like, he finalized a lot of stuff that was being worked on.
He finalized Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah. He also he did that, but he also opened the U.S. military forces for people who were, say, pagan or Wiccan to not be buried with
crosses.
Yep. And in a bunch of other, because basically we only had like I think we had 4 options for burials.
And they had to be one of them.
And they had to do one of them. And like most of these people, like if they were like pagan, but their family was Christian, they would just choose a Christian burial, even if that's not what they truly wanted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why, it's one of those things of like, there's always good and there's always bad with leadership in any country. But
the worst gun laws that we ever put in place were by George Bush.
Yeah.
The most restrictive gun laws. I'm not lying
about that.
Right? I mean, it's like, it's so funny because everybody assumes that our conservatives get into power and everything goes correctly and there's only conservative laws, and then the liberals get in power and only liberal laws get put through. But the truth is that Bill Clinton put in Defense of the Marriage Act, DMA, and then Don't Ask, Don't Tell was put into place during Clinton, which are 2 of the worst laws that we ever put in place against
And
homosexuals.
we're still
We're
dealing with
still
the
suffering from
fallout
those.
of those. We're still dealing with like
The
old
fallout of all of
prejudices that
that,
are going through with it.
right?
You know, it's
And that was under Clinton. And then of course our worst possible ever laws against um, guns were put in by George Bush and Ronald Reagan.
yeah.
And all the ones that everybody whines about, all the complaint ones, the ones that the people on the conservative side complain about, like the magazine size and things like that, which are remarkably illogical and strange. They were all put in by the Reagan administration and the Bush administration. So
Well,
it's like the worst stuff ever was not put in by the liberals for the conservatives, and the worst stuff ever for the liberals was not put in by the conservatives. And that's the thing that kind of
well, we also have to kind of look at it in a different way. Politics over time always change, and this is one of the things that in my civil
civil
when I
rights,
was in school, we had
civics,
we had a class called civics or civil unities, and in this
literal
class
civics,
they basically
the
expressed
Brady
that
Bill, Reagan era. Yes,
yeah, pretty much.
that's what we're talking about. Brady Bill, the mess for
Basically,
anybody who
in
likes
that
guns.
class, like they describe politics over time in America, and the teacher went back as far as the foundation of America and basically said we weren't originally to have a two-party system. We were to have a free system that had no sides. However, people over time need two major options.
Yeah,
And so we
people have
developed,
issues with that. Yeah,
yeah, we as
come on,
humans
work
in
with it.
America developed two options. And over
I
time,
agree with
those
you,
options,
Ghost Hand. Trickle down economics. And what gets me is that the
oh, yeah.
conservatives still think the trickle down worked.
No, the trickle down did not work.
No, it did not.
It did not. I am a child of trickle down economics, and
Yeah,
I can tell you from firsthand experience, it did not work.
it did not work.
It did not work.
Nope.
My grandparents owned their own business during the Reagan administration. They believed in Reagan as well, and it did not work for them
Nope.
100% completely. They lost a lot of crew because they were losing money, so they had to hire family instead, and and house them so that they lowered the bills for them so that they could live.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I know full aware. I'm full aware of what the Reagan administration did.
Yep.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but what I'm talking about
No,
is
we're Ghost Ham was just saying
yeah,
that's
oh
just
yeah,
mentioning trickle down, and I'm with you on
yeah.
that.
So basically, like the Republican Party in itself back in the '60s actually endorsed civil rights
So
to a
there,
degree, to a degree, not 100%, but to a good degree they did because a
uh,
lot of Republicans
you
back.
think I'm saying something different, and I'm not.
No, no, no. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm trying to prove the example that I'm going with.
Okay.
Um, so, but nowadays, the Republican Party is shown as not to be that open, is what I mean. Like people don't think that because they're Republican, they're not for civil rights and people having their equal rights.
Yeah. So
It's one of those things of it's a really hard thing to describe, but basically that class basically said to me a very long time ago, make up your own damn mind and try to impress. Like if you think this is good for other people, endorse it. If it's not good for other people and you want people to be on the same level as you, don't don't endorse something that goes against your conscience is what that class was trying to do for my class. for what I was going to school for. So I don't know. I'll stop talking. I'm just getting mumbled.
It's all right. I actually was going to go into that because there is a fascinating thing. Here, allow me to illustrate. Here is the 1956 electoral map.
Yeah.
Okay. Blue is Democrat and red is Republican.
Yeah.
Right. And this is who voted for the Republican, who was Eisenhower,
Mhm.
and the blue was Stevenson,
Mhm.
and everything like that. Okay, so we go here and we go to the next one, which is 1960.
Mhm.
The Democrat was Kennedy.
Mhm.
The Republican was Nixon.
Mhm.
And there was an independent involved in there. But
Mhm.
you can see we're getting really screwed up all of a sudden. Like the Deep South is starting to agree with New York, right? Like going for Kennedy. Kennedy messed up a lot of our political alignments. If you
Yeah.
look at 64, look at that.
Yeah.
It flipped. Now,
Mhm.
what really happened was in 60, our politics and our parties split into four. We had
Mhm.
four different parties. We had liberal Republicans and conservative Republicans, and then liberal Democrats and conservative Democrats. And Kennedy scrambled all of that. And then in 64, the Republicans then decided to be conservatives, and the Democrats decided to consolidate and become the liberals.
Not
So when
not
you look at
quite.
it,
Hold on. Not quite.
well,
That is basically when we started having people who are known in the Republican Party as rhinos.
right. Well,
What a rhino,
so
is described as is what was known as a liberal Republican.
So the rhinos,
Doing Democrat.
rhinos are a different thing because we've got rhinos that are coming up now, and they're actually moderates
Yeah.
in the Republican Party because the Republican Party is going very, very far right and swinging way right. And so anybody who stays center, or what, let's say, Ghost Hand in Brazil would see as center, is
Mhm.
considered rhino, and they're considered far left.
Mm-hmm.
For
The Republican Party.
the Republican
rhinos are
Party has
considered-
moved way right.
Yeah.
And so they've shifted all of our politics over to the right. As
Right.
somebody had said, the most crazy liberals that we have are Bernie Sanders, let's say. And Bernie Sanders is asking for what, like, Japan would be asking for in Central.
Well,
Right?
Bernie Sanders had a lot of things that was very good, and I would have welcomed. Okay.
Uh-huh. I'm not saying
College loan
anything.
forgiveness and actually making education education free to do in at a college level. I would endorse that because I don't like the fact that I'm in debt because I decided to go to college.
Well,
But now like when I have a kid, if they want to become a doctor, I have to let them know like, hey, you need to go to college for that.
that's what
You know,
Bernie
that type
Sanders
of thing.
is saying is, and that's the thing that people don't get, and
I
and
think
that is that the whole point is that an educated society is a free society.
right.
Best way to control your society is to make them stupid. In fact, we saw that, the world saw that with the Dark Ages. For 1,000 years, the Christians kept information and reading and literacy from the people and ended up knocking our entire society back 1,000 years. So that's not knocking Christians. I'm just saying that was the Orthodox.
I'm also just gonna throw this out there that a lot of the people who are the far right and very religious and very conservative, they don't even quite understand the information in their own Bibles.
Probably true too. But
Because I've literally watched someone argue about the judgment retort from the Bible that people do to basically say, you shouldn't judge other people. Because that quote is followed up with, if you judge, like it's roughly translated, if you judge someone, you will be burning in the pits of hell.
so Ghost Hand,
So,
you're not alone. Japan brought in another far right.
yeah.
And so did Germany. No, not Germany. The UK. The The UK
UK.
brought in a far right. And we're getting a whole bunch of, and fear is very effective. And so if we can, and actually this is, you want to know who I blame on this one? Barry frickin' Goldwater. Because
You know what? I kind of agree with you on that.
Barry Goldwater created or realized, however you want to put it, him and a few other core, at the time, core Democrats, because they were Dixiecrats, created, even though Goldwater's from Arizona, they created this, they came up with the concept of manipulating with fear. If I tell you the thing like the government are going to protect you from whatever it is you fear, then I can make you vote for me. And it took the liberal side a while to get a catch up on that, but now they're doing it too. And
Well,
I mean,
and
because it is literally the platform that Ronald Reagan worked for in 1968, and we are still suffering from his first initial trials into that. Because in 68 was when he said socialism equals communism. And from that point forward, anything that was socialism instantly was the evil Ruskies and immediately made you a communist, and it immediately made you a threat to the United States. So nobody could pass any kind of social reform, because if they tried, then they ended up being Ruskies and communists,
right.
and all they're trying to do is destroy America. And that line still lives today.
I think
We can get
that
social medicine for it.
yes, and also at the same time, like I have to remind, like some people like don't even remember or don't even recall this, but if you look back into some of the careers of, say, some of the most prominent figures in our political system in America, like say Bill Clinton and Hillary Rodham Clinton,
Mm-hmm.
they both, when they started getting into politics, they both were on the side of liberal Republican. They worked for.
They were centered.
They were definitely not in a Democrat, and they were not in the Democratic Party when they first started. They moved to the Democratic Party, and a lot of the civil rights and socialistic Republicans moved to the Democratic Party.
Right.
Socialism, in my mind, is for the better of the community. It's not necessarily. It's not to make a communist nation. It's just basically like, yeah, it's one of those things of, yes, they are centered. I get that. But also at the same time, some of the most infamous quotes that I've ever heard from the Democratic Party came from those two people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I did not have relations with that woman is probably by far the one I always remember when it comes to Clinton. But the other one from Hillary, the one that hits me the most, and a lot of politicians have kind of adopted this, is she is quoted in saying that we are losing the information race. Basically, she was talking about on how the internet had no rules.
Yeah, but it's interesting that she
for information.
Depression for a different reason.
Yes, and and that's basically what it boils down to is American politics. They do use fear tactics. They fear people learning the complete and 100% story of these people. And that is where...
Also true.
Yeah. Yes, Brent, it shouldn't have rules. Unfortunately, the internet in America does actually have rules.
It's horrible.
It does actually have rules.
And
enough.
we lost a fight, although I think we're gaining it back.
Yeah, we are gaining some of the stuff that we lost in the early 2000s back now.
But I mean, we found, so it's interesting. Here's another side note. It's interesting looking at social media and realizing that the social media tells you a little bit about what would happen if you were to what was the thing we were fighting over about 3 years ago with the FCC that was we were trying it was come on. I did a Springs comic about it.
Are you talking?
About the idea being that the companies can't throttle, like Comcast can't decide that this website is
Yes.
slow.
Okay. Yes, I do.
That
I do
website.
remember that. Yeah, paying for faster lanes. Yes.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
they want to
Wait,
do that really badly, and of course now you can see what happens when you get that, and that is the people who pay more in Facebook end up on the top of your feed, and you talking about your food ends up way at the bottom of your feed or not on your feed at all. And that's
right.
exactly what happens. And what has occurred is all we hear now is liberal and conservative propaganda, depending on what side of it we end up on, and we are just polarizing. We are
Right.
so polarized now.
And so that's why when people sit there and like they're like, well, during your elections, are you guys bombarded with commercials? I'm like, yes, I'm bombarded with commercials, but I also try to stay off of social media during election times because it is so horrible. Ugh.
I
But
made
this is a show where we're supposed to talk about comics, and I just realized I brought in politics.
You did. All right.
So, but I will segue. This is not political. This is just a thing. Our television networks here in America are only owned by like basically 3 companies, and then there's a bunch of smaller companies because Disney owns Fox and ABC,
Right.
and uh,
Okay.
NBC and
Rotate us
NBC.
around.
Well,
There's
a couple of
Taurus,
other ones are under Universal Paramount. So
Scorpio. Hang on. I'm steering here. I'm going to make people sick. Sorry. Come on. Where are we? Up, 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 up. I'm having a real problem here all of a sudden. I'm like, wait. We were at Scorpio. Where was Scorpio? There we go. Scorpio. Damn it. Taurus. Moving upward. Moving over. Come on. This shouldn't be this hard. Why am I in Draco now? Cephas? I'm now on people. Cygnus. Formal Hut, that's one of the closest stars to us. Just saying. Apparently, I cannot steer. There we are. Damn it. Warp speed. All right.
this is a much better picture of Betty White than the previous one her assistant posted.
Oh man, DC? You're a DC person? I'm just kidding. Actually, Donald's
Well,
just like, he'll discuss DC or Marvel. And I'm like, I actually have no opinion. I like both of them.
I will be honest. I don't like either of them.
Fair.
I mean, I like the characters. Don't get me wrong. I like the characters. I like the storylines. I like everything. However, the fact that we have 2 major companies like DC and Marvel, and they have like a bunch of history where they screw over our artists, I don't like them for that.
That's not
Let me clarify.
a bad thing. I mean, I'm not opposed.
Yeah,
What are
uh,
my steering controls? Does anybody remember the steering controls in Celestia?
probably in your steering wheel.
Yeah, right?
Um, However, I will say that if I had to be a betting man, if they had a DC Marvel crossover, kind of like where they were fighting one another again in this day and age, I think DC would win because they had Batman. They've
Okay.
done crossovers before, and Batman knows these people, so he would probably already have files on them on how to defeat them.
Okay.
What? I mean, well, that's why he was booted out of the Justice League, right?
Okay, guys. So Sin City, I think, was Image, correct?
Yeah. Sin City was Image. Frank Miller is the one that did it. Frank Miller
Because
did
Frank
work
Miller
for-
can't get away with what with the normal stuff out of
yeah.
out of
Now,
it,
Frank Miller did do Hush for a little bit, which is the Batman comic.
right?
Um,
I'm over here looking at
um,
Crisis of Infinite Earths. I've got, which is DC. So it's interesting that the only real, I mean, other than Watchmen, which is also DC, but
yeah.
it's interesting that the comic that I have sitting around here is of that sort of thing. Oh, hey, that's kind of cool. This is like cannon fodder. So anyway, yeah. So the only two, well, except for Usagi Man, that's Dark Horse.
Well, Dark Horse, I actually like a lot of Dark Horse comics way more than
Man, that's my. This is my boy. This is my boy.
Usagi Jumbo.
I love Usagi Yojimbo. Stan Sakai, man. But I mean, all these are is retelling of old samurai stories.
Mm-hmm.
I
Watchmen,
don't
yes, did go to DC because ultimately Dr. Manhattan makes a character that is pretty much his child. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think Watchmen's been with DC since the beginning.
It was under a subsidiary of DC, not DC label.
Well, that's what I mean is I feel like, and I'm just looking for the because this is a special edition, so I don't know for sure, but I don't know when this was released. Because this one definitely says DC imprint. Right? Because I mean, like, this is a DC imprint.
Yeah.
It definitely is DC. I'm just trying to figure out when this copy came out. Because I carry this copy with me. Because Watchmen's awesome. And there's Doc Manhattan.
And
And
his
there's Blue
nakedness.
Smurf. But there's no title page on this. Well, there is, but it doesn't say. It just says who the. I don't have an information line on it.
Yeah.
It's like oh, here we go. All right. So what are we at here? What copy is this? It says DC cover and compilation copyright 86-87 DC. So copyright 86-87 DC, but I don't know whether this is an 86 or 87 imprint copy. Because okay, so it has to be old enough because now they have to now these are yeah, now these so this has to be at least a 90s version of it. Because well, I've had it for 100 years, but it has to be at least 90s, and the reason I say that is because in the early 2000s, graphic novels changed to being considered a novel. And so they start getting imprint and reprint information in their inner cover.
Mhm.
So that's a thing. So we're, by the way, if you've ever wanted to see what Orion looks like from the point of view of Bellatrix, here is Bellatrix right here. We're centered on Bellatrix. Here's Betelgeuse, which is the other shoulder. And here's Alnitak, Alnenium, and Mintaka. Those three are the three belt stars. And so from up here, they're tilted slightly. And then the two leg stars are down here. And the Rigel and Scythe and Aranib down there. So that's what it looks like from here. You only give it 3 stars. Hey,
normal.
but over here, let's move this way to the opposite side and go up. Or is it down? Or up from here, right?
Mhm.
Up.
I'll just casually agree with you.
Because, yeah, we're talking about stars now, and it's like, yeah, you don't know. I'm looking this way. Hey, the music's kind of cool for this. Hey, if you want a good drink, I hear that you can get them at Mimosa. Just saying.
Dun-dun.
You're like, I hate you. It's really weird trying to see these things in 3D in your brain, right? Because like I know where stars are positioned in a 3D space, but I don't know. It's hard to kind of sometimes it's really hard to understand where things are. So from this side, so you can actually kind of see open clusters here. It's kind of cool. One of the things that I love is I've been putting together these star maps, and the star maps are clumpy. Yeah, if you go to Momoa, all you do is get beat up. Actually, I think Jason Momoa would probably be like the kindest person on the planet. He just seems
He's a really kind person.
he just seems like that. He seems like a good guy, less the beat you up sort of guy.
Raph tries to pull his look off all the time. I just tell Raph he's not Jason Momoa.
Yeah, sorry, Raph. I love you though. Okay, so there's Betelgeuse. We need to be 180 degrees from Betelgeuse. So and that's a fact, Jack. Okay.
If you say Betelgeuse three times, does it come towards you?
Wait. Let's see.
Brent, I thought it would be your time to kind of pounce on Jason Momoa like all the thirsty women out there.
Yep, right. Betelgeuse. Wah. Oh, we went somewhere else. We're way out the hell out here now. It didn't work.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Someone posted this, and it's the actor who played Khan when he was on Fantasy Island.
Uh-huh.
And it says, "Welcome to SETI Alpha 5."
Yes.
And it's like him from Fantasy Island holding a milkshake, welcoming people to Fantasy Islands.
Come on, move faster.
Oh.
Okay, so see these guys right here? Atlas, Merope, Maya, Alcyone, Electra, and Tegeta. I only give them 6 stars in the Pleiades. So if you ever wanted to see a good example of a completely awesome open cluster, here is the Pleiades. And they really are right next to each other. Look at that. They're right on top of one another. Someday, there's another culture that I have that lives around the Pleiades.
Uh-huh.
And so head out to Bellatrix. No. What I was saying was I recently read an article that was talking about how all of the stars in our galaxy are in clumps.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I could have told you that. And Bellatrix is not exactly in its own clump. I can see already. There's a lot of the cluster is very open around it. Cassiopeia is a constellation, and so you're going to end up with stars that are in like 14 Cas and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
no, Niosynxite is not in fact a thing. Man, I have not gotten as much spam as I have from YouTube. YouTube is just slamming me with spam. That's weird. Weird.
Is it weird, or is it because someone blocked one spammer, so all the spammers are trying now?
Well, no. So, did I tell you the story about that? So,
No.
um, oh, that's interesting. So, Spica, Elnath, and Bellatrix are all sort of in a thing here. They're in a group. I have to kind of get an idea of what my. Yeah, they don't. Um, Green eggs and spam. And I think part of it is it's kind of going through this and looking at this. Um, so Celestia is one of my favorite programs for just viewing stars because it has all of the stars in
Mhm.
it, and they update the database every time we get a new, like Gaia. The Gaia information's now in here, which is really nice because Gaia has been a great probe for it. For those that are not aware, the Gaia probe, the Gaia space probe, is in what they call a heliocentric orbit. In other words, it orbits the sun. It doesn't actually orbit the Earth. And what it does is it's a camera system. And when it's on one side of the star, it takes pictures of one side of Earth, one side of Sol. It'll take pictures of the star. And then it waits until it's on the other side of the star and takes the same picture of the same stars. And then does a technique called parallax. Closer stars, when you move back and forth, closer stars move more than the
Mhm.
farther stars. And so what it'll do is it'll check its parallax. And that gives us an idea. You can just use basic trigonometry at that point in time to figure out how far a star is. And so Gaia has been sending down data, but the problem is that Gaia's data is huge, terabytes worth of data that's been coming down from that probe. So we get them as it transmits as much as it possibly can. It just sits there forever, transmitting a huge stream of information. But every time we get it, we get updated information on where that star is in real life. And with this newest batch of Gaia information, we're discovering that stars hang out in groups, just like I've been drawing in my maps. So, like, I think that's really cool because I see structure of our galaxy kind of like mozzarella cheese. You know what I mean? It's like clumps with strings in between them. And it's all held together with gravity in that way. But I always say the world is full of either water or slime. The universe is full of water or slime. It depends on how you look at it, but everything is either water or slime. You know? And so
Yeah.
if you think about like the consistency of slime, and stars are all clumped in the slime like glitter suspended in clear slime.
Yeah.
And then you take slime and you just keep flinging it around, you end up with these long strings in between clumps and balls, and you end up with these clusters with stars in between them that string between the two. Looks kind of like mozzarella. So much so that when I did my maps, my star maps from above, I literally took pictures of mozzarella cheese and just traced the mozzarella mode and put those as the high gravity, low gravity areas. So that, because I mean, I'm not going to know for sure what it looks like out there near Moment. Moment is a star that I can't even find. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually why I'm in Celestia. I'm like, where is Moment? How far is Moment from Bellatrix? Does anybody even know? You know?
Yeah.
So, always a thing that's funny. Let's see here. If we turn on the nebula and our open clusters and our globulars, we should see got a red thing. Strength. We call that string theory with just a little bit of marinara. Nebula. That's what I wanted. And turn off galactic for that one. All right. There we go. That's the targeting system I wanted. Because this gives me reference point. And yes, it gives me a reference point based on Earth, but it still gives me a reference that I can use. I wish I could change where this was, this centerpiece. Okay, so for the story, here's the Hyades cluster. That's where my bad guys are. So the Hyades cluster is where not Confederacy, the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
They live in the Hyades cluster, which is right there. This way is and up. Wow, that's a big thing, whatever that is. Oh, that's a nebula. And up. Where's it down? Maybe it's down. It's to the right of the Hyades. So Hyades is there. We go this way. This is a lot easier to find stars in 3D realm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They live in hell. No wonder they're bad, grumpy people. Okay, so there's Barnard's Loop. And the Orion Nebula sits here. So if we turn the other direction, directly behind Bellatrix is this large structure, which is the Iris Vela shell. And it's a big cloud piece that's sort of a problem child for all of our stories. Why can't I see Pleiades? I should see Pleiades.
Mm-hmm.
You're just acknowledging. I appreciate that, though.
I am. I'm like, but I'm lost. I'm like, I know what you're doing, but also you're going so fast that like I'm having a hard time keeping up with your chart. So that's why I just started looking away, because I started getting kind of motion sick too.
Also fine. So if we go in here to 71 tau and pull out to a distance of a light year or two, let's go to a 3 light year distance. You can see that there's definitely a cluster around the Hyades cluster here. You can see all the stars that are in the Hyades cluster. It's kind of cool. You got to be about 17 light years out to see all the stars in the cluster. But it does mean that. So, looking at what I was trying to say, Gaia shell, the Gaia stuff, put me into a different level of hell. Put me into a different spot for it. So, we have about 10 minutes left in the show.
Okay.
What have you accomplished this week, my good friend? What have you accomplished? What have you done? What trouble have you done?
I would
There's the ladies.
say that I don't know exactly what I accomplished this week, other than basically making sure that I have next week prepared. Is that something of a win?
That works. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm kind of geared up for
You?
for next whenever.
Okay.
It sounds decent to me.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, my plans this week is to actually get some headway on some type of work going. There are some things that are happening in my life that I can't really talk about, that basically once I get the feeling that I can pull it, I have to have everything prepared so that I can have an income without going to a company to make income off of.
Fair.
So I'm just hoping everything pans out, and I don't want to jinx it.
Also fair.
So what is going on with you? How do you think your week went?
I think that went well. I really like what. Hang on, real quick. I'm going to address something real quick. If you for what Donald just said, right over here in the Lambda Orionis ring, this part over here, that's the Orion Nebula complex. It's long enough, it's far enough away that at full speed, if you were to take your ship and put it at full speed, it would take about a half a year to get there in story term. So it takes about 6 months or so to get there. So just so you're wondering where the Horsehead Nebula is. For me, I think the biggest thing that has become a major awesome is the concept of the tech manual, because that sounds like something we could make and print and put on the table to have at least people come over and go, huh, this is interesting, and be interested in the story. And I think doing a little tech manual with a little like 6-page short comic to show kind of what because my wife's comment was the tech manual is great, but without a story or anything, nobody's going to be really that interested. And she's probably right. So a little 6-pager might be good. And a signed copy for Brent.
Yeah.
The tech manual is my big push for next week. Let's get that tech manual out the door and ready and prepped. And then I can spend time after that working on a 6-pager so that we can have that to go with it. Once those two are in the can, I've got a table set up then, and that's good.
Yeah.
We can do tabling at that point.
I think if you want to go into full depth of it, eventually I do want to see a comic about the society where they only have the sound waves left.
Only the sound wave. Oh, you mean the Benoit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe you
All
write
that's left is their
maybe
radio signals.
yeah, maybe you write it and then someone else basically draws it for you.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the following week is the 6-pager. Oh man. So that's where I am. Next week, we finish this tech manual and get it ready to rock and roll. Rock and roll. Rock and roll.
All
I
right.
don't know, I'm having fun.
No,
You're
it's
like,
all
are
right.
you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm
It's-
not okay.
I'm assuming that it's like the spirit of Meatloaf coming through you.
I actually was channeling the spirit of Jim Carrey, but that's okay.
Well, I would rather do Meatloaf in a day like today.
You can't do Meatloaf because he'd do anything for you, but not that. Come on, that was good. That was good.
That was like level of dad mode.
That was so
Oh,
totally level dad.
it
That was
was.
level dad.
That was like level up dad. Like
I'll have you know it was level dad.
it's like one of those. I'd be like, if your son was in the room, I could see his eyes rolling to the back of his head. Like, oh, that was horrible.
It was.
Uh,
It was cool though. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. You should set a goal for 2 pages of script for next week.
this week I actually accomplished 4 pages of script.
Well, then you should set a goal then for twice that, 8 pages.
Well, I need to finish the rest of the pages, 8 page, because it's an 8-page comic I'm writing.
Oh, and there you go.
Yeah.
I really like that Brent's sort of keeping us on task.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I actually like the fact that you're doing that, Brent. So please continue to do
It's
so.
good. It's good. It's just for me, I feel like I need to have someone here, like an assistant, that literally just tells me go to work.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But
I mean, I know there's people who will be willing to for me to pay them money for them to just sit over my shoulder and say, "You need to work now. Get back to work."
Can you do 3 complete and 4 rough pages?
I think I could.
Could you rough up 4 pages? Rough up, shake them down for money?
I can. I can. I think I can do that. I can do that.
Good.
You'll do it for free, Brent. Well, I mean, okay. Well, anyways, so Brent set up my goals for next week, obviously. So I need to do those. While on the show today, I did do some faces, some headshots.
Headshots.
These are like characters I'm thinking of. They just have labels of Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4, Team 5. That's all that they have. It's a group of 5 teenagers going up against a murderous man named the Butterfly Man.
Cool. Coolio.
So, anyhow, all right.
All right.
Ready to head out?
I think it's about time for us to go to get food and stuff like that.
Yes, because I'm coming up to the point where I can actually eat food again.
Yep, that's my thought. I'm at that point too. And I got a cramp in a rib. So I've been sitting here just kind of trying to not have a cramp in a rib. Oh.
That's why I've been sitting like to the side, because like my like one side of my I don't know what I did. That's the weird thing.
Right? I have no idea what you did
I'm getting
either.
to that age where I just pull a muscle and I don't even know what I did to do it.
I have both of my upper abdominals right now are pulled because I had cramps yesterday in this one and then this one.
Okay.
So they both
So
pulled.
everyone, TMI as our sign off. Yeah.
Everyone, yeah. It's our medical stuff because we're old and old people have problems.
Yeah.
And I hate life. And that's the way it goes. And so there ain't any boo-boo. So
Yep.
anyway, that's the nature of the beast.
Yes.
Oh, hey, we could do is real quickly go home here.
Are
And
we going to see Earth in the black hole that has become Earth in your society?
it doesn't actually do that in mine.
Uh,
Or not in here. But if we head home, you can see all of the different planets. It's kind of cool. Although they're not marked. They may not be marked.
you mean all the planets that everyone thinks that don't exist in our solar system? Because I think we only have like 9.
We have 8.
I still count Pluto.
You can't count Pluto.
I count Pluto.
That's what's so funny is everybody's like, I count Pluto. And I'm like, you can't count Pluto because if you count Pluto, then you have to count Eris and Quaoar and
I believe by my previous
Sedna
statement, I actually do count those. Because
and
I said most people don't realize we have
Make.
yeah, Make and their moon, Sedna,
Sedna,
Eris,
Eris,
um,
Quaoar,
Quar.
Make. What is
We
it?
have
Xerxes?
Xerxes. Yep, is the newer one.
Yep. I mean, like you have to count all of them. If
Yeah,
you're willing to count all of them, then it's okay.
yeah. I mean, we have like a ton of them.
Right?
So,
The planets. Are the planets not showing? I think I may have turned the planets off because I didn't want to, because I don't usually use the planets. View. And then we want to do view options. Or is it render? It's render, view options. Yep, I turned off planets. That's part of the problem. We'll turn on orbits and planets and dwarf planets and moons. There we go. Now you can see we're farther out than Pluto, which is part of the problem, right? It's interesting when you see it on the ecliptic like this, how far up everything is. There's Ceres.
yeah.
And there's Mercury, Venus, and Earth, and Mars. Like they're below the ecliptic, the galactic, or where we actually are. But this is where they really are right now at this moment, at this second, on 2022, January 21 at 1800 Universal Time.
Yeah. Because right now we have Eros. I think we have Vesta, Didominus, Temple 1, Psyche, Lucy,
Mm-hmm.
Apophis.
The biggest problem we've got is Ceres is the biggest problem. This one right here, one Ceres, says it right over here.
Yeah.
Ceres is in the asteroid belt.
So is Vesta.
Right? And so but Ceres is of the same era or quality as Pluto. And so if you do that, if we add Pluto, you have to do Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Ceres, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and then keep going from there.
I mean,
Sedna,
a lot of
Eris.
people don't realize we have 4 subplanets in the asteroid field. We have Pallas, Vesta, Ceres, and Juno.
So
Those
there's
are the
that.
4 planets in the asteroid field.
Yep.
And then on
We've been
top of
all
that,
over the place on this show, haven't we?
yeah, I mean, yep, because I found Wame and Make. In Eris out there past Pluto. Let's see. Oh, this is the NASA map that I'm looking at, folks. I'm not looking at the same one that he is. The one I'm looking at right now doesn't have all of our subplanets in it because they move from certain points in our solar system from time to time, visibility wise. So they only this one only shows what's visible from their technology.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like according to the new one, the dwarf planets are Pluto, Ceres, Eris, Huame, and Makemake.
Yep.
And everything else that we were talking about are considered not dwarf planets anymore, more like asteroids that are just massive. So, yeah. Technically, Sedna, I believe, is a dwarf planet as well. But it's not always in our range of scope.
Right. There's our star. Look at our star. Oh, you can't see it. I turned off that. Look at our star.
Yeah.
Our star is so cool.
Yeah.
And there's Orion, looking just like Orion, like you'd expect it to look.
Mm-hmm.
Bellatrix, Betelgeuse. The 3 stars of the center. Alnath. There you go. Okay. Well, I'm going to get going and stuff. So we'll do more of this tech manual tomorrow, or a tech manual next week for me, and hopefully pages for you.
Well, and hopefully the other thing is getting my camera set up by next week so that I can actually show you my art desk. While
I now have a section over here set up for painting, which is what we're after next. So I just need to get this goofy little camera to work, and it won't work right now, and I don't know why. Although it was, yeah, see, it's just black. I don't know why I'm not getting control over this camera, but I should be getting control over that camera anyway.
All right. Well, on that moment.
Thanks, Adam. Good to see you. By the way,
Hi,
for
Adam.
5 minutes, but we're leaving now. I'm sorry. Sorry,
No.
dude. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 hours ago, or not tomorrow, Monday. I'll be back Monday at 9 o'clock Mountain Time. So if you want to join me again, Adam, you are more than welcome to do so. It was good to see you. It was good to see you too, Ghost Hand. It was good to have you here, Brent and Donald. And thank you again for joining me, Pepper. And as for everyone else, as I have oft said, remember to keep your eyes on the stars. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Computer, good night.